We would cut the deficit less rapidly than the Chancellor is doing, so over 6 years rather than 4. That's probably going to be forced on the Chancellor anyway. But more importantly, we would adjust the pace of deficit reduction according to what's happening in the economy. When growth is slow, say GDP is forecast to be growing at less than 1.5%, we'd go for a slower pace of deficit reduction. When growth is fast, say faster than 3%, then we'd go for a faster pace of reduction. Simple, really.
Well, we'd like to see £2 billion worth of funding put into the Green Deal to help ensure that this vital policy for delivering energy efficiency measures is an absolute success, but also so that young, long-term unemployed people have a job within this industry. And that also matches up with another policy we have, which is a job guarantee fund for long-term young unemployed people, which means they are guaranteed a job and they are obliged to actually take that job after 12 months of being unemployed.
On tax reform, we think that the Chancellor should heed the advice of the CBI and introduce new capital allowances for future infrastructure projects. We also think that he should look at extending the R&D tax credit for non-profitable firms and also reconsider his decision or his plans to cut capital allowances, which we think will harm manufacturers quite dramatically.
Well, clearly the economy needs a stimulus, and I think we could do much worse than invest in infrastructure right now, particularly in social housing and in transport. So what we'd ask is that the government put an extra £5 billion into infrastructure spending this year and then increase that to £10 billion next year and every year thereafter.
The UK's got two problems. One is that small businesses can't get the finance they need at the moment. So the Chancellor has talked about credit easing. What he should do is ensure that when he does implement something called credit easing, it's essentially about getting credit to those small businesses who are being starved of it at the moment. The second problem is that the country needs to spend a lot more on infrastructure. That would be good for the long-term growth. It would also create jobs in the short term. And the way to do that, the best way to do that, is for the government to set up a state investment bank, give it a lot of capital to be going on with, allow it to go and raise more capital in the financial markets, and then to use that money to fund infrastructure projects, more social housing, more transport links, etc.
Well, we want the government to build on the idea of enterprise zones with innovation zones. The difference being that they'd be focused very much on high value added innovation sectors, and rather than offering generalised tax relief, there'd be focused tax relief, for example in the form of research and development tax credits. Also, stakeholders within the innovation zone would be encouraged to come together to identify barriers to growth, and once they've recognised what those are, they can make proposals to government for lighter touch regulation on some of the firms operating within those areas.
Obviously the government have put a lot of onus on the export sector in the recovery, but we think it needs to look at two things in particular, and they revolve around the export credit guarantee scheme. Firstly, the government should look to encourage a greater uptake of that scheme among small and medium-sized businesses across a wider range of industries. And it should also look to broaden the mandate of the scheme to include advising businesses on the creditworthiness of foreign buyers, and also help businesses to recover foreign debts should they arise.
One thing the government could do would be to help employers raise their ambition for skills and increase demand for higher level qualifications, and a really good way to do that would be to increase investment in the government's Growth and Innovation Fund, and we're looking to increase that to 200 million, and also back that up with a really ambitious programme of research and pilot programmes to help employers increase their demand for skills and qualifications.
Yeah, the government should introduce a universal childcare system. It would not only increase maternal employment rates, but also offer a financial return to the Treasury and better outcomes for kids. So we're calling on the government to introduce a universal childcare system.
The government's aim is to cut immigration down to the tens of thousands. The problem it's got is it can't control large parts of immigration, including emigration and immigration from the European Union. So it ends up clamping down most on those areas of immigration are actually the most valuable to our economy. We're saying they actually need to take out overseas students and skilled workers, take that out from the numbers game of immigration, and actually have a policy that's based on what's good for the economy and good for the country.